I am Sandy Falcon and I am the manager at Lyonia Environmental Center. So right now you are located in the Deltona Amphitheater. And the Deltona Amphitheater is located in between Lyonia Environmental Center and the Deltona Library and Lyonia Preserve, which is behind me. So part of our LEED certification when we opened the facility 11 years ago was adding permeable concrete or permeable paving to our amphitheater space. It is pavement or concrete that is permeable or pervious, which basically means that water can seep down through it. It's very important to have, especially in a habitat and ecosystem like this. Scrub habitat, which is what Lyonia Preserve is a naturally porous habitat. It is primarily made up of sugar sand. And what happens when it rains, that sugar sand naturally percolates and scrubs and cleans that water so that it can filter down. It recharges our aquifer, which then recharges our springs and our rivers. So when you're building something as large as a 1,000-person amphitheater, you want to take that into consideration. And when you're putting in something like an asphalt or concrete, kind of like these benches here, that percolation isn't going to take place as much because it's going to absorb, or you're going to have runoff from that concrete when it rains. When you have less water recharging the aquifer, those water levels decrease. That affects our springs, that affects our rivers, and that affects us because our ability to have fresh water and the ecosystem's ability to have fresh water is now declined because we're not replacing what we're using. So when you add something like pervious concrete, that allows that water to then still continue to percolate down into our aquifer. It goes through a secondary substrate layer. It then reaches the sand layer below it and then continues to filter and percolate down into the aquifer and recharge just as if it would if it was natural sand. So this space was a natural depression that already existed on site. And when the engineers and the managers decided to construct an amphitheater, they thought that that was a perfect location in order to put in a lovely amphitheater like this, but then introduce the use of a pervious or permeable concrete into the construction and engineering of this amphitheater space. There are different types that can be used depending on the location and how you're going to use it. Some of them are stronger than others, and those would be used if you're going to be driving on them in parking lots and things like that. This is a lower traffic area. You're just getting foot traffic. Nobody's driving on it. So you can use a type of concrete that is a little more porous and a little less strong than you would need for a parking lot or anything like that, because you're not having to take into consideration the load and the bearing of the wheels of the tires of cars and turning radiuses and wear and tear on it. Yeah, there is maintenance that is required. It's pretty minimal. Obviously, if you're in a higher traffic area where there's more sediment, there's more wind-blown sediment that's getting into those pores, you need to maintain it a little more often than you would in a less trafficked area like this. This has been here for at least 11 years, if not a little bit longer, and it's worn well. There might be a little chip here and there, but overall it's worn well. It still percolates. You can come out here and it could be one of our wonderful Florida thunderstorms and it's pouring rain and everything is wet, and within a few minutes after the rain has stopped, the pervious concrete has dried up.
Permeable pavement is a way to reduce it's a form of low impact development in the sense that you're reducing the amount of impervious surfaces that you're constructing when you're developing. It's a way to reduce that impact and reduce the amount of impervious surface. Well, the more impervious surface you have, the more runoff you're going to have, the more treatment you're going to have to provide. So anytime you can reduce that, you're helping out. Permeable pavement or permeable concrete, which is basically uses a different kind of binding, and it has large aggregate which allows the water to move through. The pavers, interlocking pavers, things like that have large holes basically in them that allow the water to move through. It's a little different underneath as far as your base material, and your stabilized subgrade material is going to be different than if you were just laying asphalt or putting concrete down, because whatever you put underneath that material has to allow the water to percolate as well. Is it going to be used for vehicles, traffic, or is it just for pedestrians? That would factor into the type of permeable pavement you're going to use. It would also your considerations are your maintenance cost afterwards. Permeable pavement requires maintenance to ensure that whatever pavement you put down percolates over time. Site considerations: if you have a smaller site and you want to reduce your footprint of your stormwater treatment system, permeable pavement would be an alternative for that as well. So I would imagine different materials have different levels of maintenance and different routines that you have to do, and it all depends on which one you pick. Sweeping, blowing, making sure that there's not a buildup of sediment and material in the pavement that's going to cause it to go from being pervious to impervious, which would defeat the purpose of using permeable pavement. But they are all going to have a certain level of maintenance, just like asphalt has maintenance. You have to do striping, you have to do seal coating if it's a parking lot, or resurfacing, or any kind of pavement or something you use in a development is going to require some level of maintenance. So it's not like traditional forms of pavement don't require maintenance. It's just permeable pavements require a different type of maintenance at maybe a different interval. It's a good alternative to traditional pavement, and it's something that if maintained properly will benefit the environment.